everyone, and welcome to Rad Chat. We're here live at UKIO, and my name is Jo McMahon, and I'm joined by fellow host.
I'm Joker Anderson.
So we have another lovely guest joining us on the Rad Chat sofa. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, hello everybody. My name's Paul Burns. I work for a company called Thor, and we're involved in a therapy called Photobiomodulation, or PBM.
How did you come up with Thor?
So this was long before my time. It's obviously very much related to, I'm going to get this wrong, aren't I? It's the Norse god of, well, I think thunder, but Thor, hammer, light, something to do with light and Norse gods.
Why didn't you say the god of photobiomodulation?
There you go, the god of photobiomodulation, that works.
So tell us a little bit about your background.
So I started, I'm not a clinician, I never have been a clinician. I started working for a dressings company in 2011. And at that point we had a dressing called Polymem, which I think is still very much in use in a lot of radiotherapy centres across the UK.
Great dressing.
Yeah, it's my second favourite product of all time. I could still talk all day about Polymem, happily.
It also has a really nice smell, if you know it.
Oh, it's a fantastic product, it really is. And so that kind of was my gateway into oncology, because it was being used for radiation dermatitis. And it just, the whole oncology just excited me as an arena to work in. It was, you just patient feedback. It was literally making a difference to patient quality of life. And that was, it was irresistible to hear that from people. So, long story short, I ended up moving to Thor, where, because there was nice guidance given for the use of photobiomodulation. And at that time, Thor then decided he wanted to recruit someone to try and roll it out into the NHS. And luckily, they decided to.
So, for anyone listening who doesn't know what it is, give us a rundown if you can.
Of course. So, photobiomodulation is the application of light to tissue in order to generate some form of cellular response. In itself, it's not a new idea. So, it's very commonly used in the NHS already. So, for example, when babies are born prematurely, they will place them in an incubator with blue light to prevent jaundice. It's used in dermatology, I get bits of eczema, and it's used with a purple light. So the application of light to tissue is not a new idea. What really changed things, so Thor delivered red light and near infrared light. And there was the nice guidance that assessed around about 42 randomised controlled trials was looking at that type of light, the red, near infrared, and that's what Thor deliver, and that's kind of what the gateway to oncology for the Thor PBM was.
What actually happens at a cellular level?
This is an extremely
Are you going to get
complicated.
geeky?
Well, so what we're going to do, I'm going to try and avoid getting geeky. So, what I always do, because I've worked with the Swallows Head Neck Cancer Charity, I'm a patron of the Swallows, so I've met a lot of patients over the years, and when sort of discussing this with patients, I always initially start by putting people in mind of, well, we know that light affects tissue, and we all know that because all of us have been out in the sun and changed colour. Well, we may even have burned under the sun. Now, different type of light, but that's still our cells reacting to light. So we know cells react to light. So when we deliver this particular type of light, what happens is it reduces oxidative stress in a cell and increases ATP, which is cellular energy, allowing, this is a perfectly, it's a biological function, it's a non-medicinal biological function, and it just allows that cell to behave as it was genetically coded to behave originally. That's a real high-level explanation of what is some quite complex cellular biology. But again, when I boil it down to really simple things and explain it to people, photobiomodulation has a profound anti-inflammatory effect. That's what I'm really boiling it down to.
So why doesn't every department have one?
Lots of NHS-related kind of difficulties. So, in essence, delivery of PBM is incredibly simple. We're only delivering light using LEDs, we're not delivering lasers. So in theory, it can be done by anyone, anytime, anywhere. Thing is, of course, it does need cleaning. There is an intraoral part to it. So the intraoral part needs a protective cover. So the cost of those can rack up a little bit. So sometimes the cost issue, we start to have to make quite robust business cases for it. Cleaning at the moment is a bit of a challenge for some people. There's a lot of infection control teams who are asking, because it's intraoral, it must be cleaned using Tristel, which adds cost and what have you to it. And then there are simple things like, resource. Because as much as a patient can do this themselves, you want members of staff on hand to be able to monitor the patient going in and out, to monitor the cleaning. So really, you could probably summarise why not everybody has it under a heading of practicalities. But they're all practicalities that we're working to resolve. And what we also do is we loan equipment to trusts. So we don't expect trusts to make a financial commitment to purchasing the equipment without first offering them a chance to evaluate for up to 18 months to make sure that they can, first of all, get the clinical benefit they're expecting to see, and then they can make a decision on whether it's actually cost effective for them to purchase it at the end of that period. And it gives us, that period also gives us a chance to help build our business case, because, for example, the sleeves start to become a lot more affordable, the covers that we use, if you start to say, well, hold on a minute, we've saved all this money on analgesia or pegs, rigs, whatever it might be. So that also gives us time to help build a business case. So the short answer to the question of why doesn't everyone have it, because I think everybody who's really fairly keen, there's not much cynicism left out there. The short answer would be practicalities, but we try and work with you to it.
Can I ask, and you may not want to answer this, and it's absolutely fine, but is it expensive? Like, from kind of a treatment perspective, and I'm thinking business case-wise, they always look at, what is the savings later on? And we're not very good at doing that, are we?
No.
Because, and especially in radiotherapy, because we sit isolated as a treatment, what we don't always do is then look at, and where does that patient go after they've finished treatment? Are they having to access all the other services like dietetics, like speech and language, like psychological support because of the consequences of treatment? But if we're doing this in radiotherapy, we're saving costs later down the line. But how much is it? Like, is it expensive?
So the kind of blunt answer to that is no, it's not. So the capital cost is, there are different kind of packages you can buy. The capital cost is, say, £15,500, which for capital equipment in the NHS, you pay that once and you own it. That's not very much.
It's a lot cheaper than I thought you were going to say, actually.
Yeah, so like I said, it's capital equipment alone. It really isn't very expensive. So making a cost argument against the capital is not a difficult thing to do at all. The protective sleeves and the cleaning are where the cost issue comes in. Now, what a lot of trusts are doing at the moment is they're delivering just the extra oral PBM with some pretty good results, it has to be said.
Okay.
So certainly to get people started, quite often what we're saying is, right, we know that we can get some clinical efficacy, it's worth you having just the external PBM, and that's only £9,000, and then you're not paying any of the consumable costs whatsoever, and you're not having to pay the high cleaning costs around the Tristel and what have you. And then there's other things we're doing. So at the moment, the sleeve is more expensive than anybody would like. It's provided by a third party. We're not the manufacturer of that sleeve or the distributor of that sleeve. So we are trying to do something in-house.
I was going to say, you need to find a factory, don't you?
Not off. It has been, believe you me, for about... You would be amazed. I always say to people, to find something that fits the probe, allows enough light through, and has all the relevant regulatory clearance to be used intraorally, you'd be amazed how non-simple that process actually is.
I come from a manufacturing family of fire equipment, and I'm not telling, honestly, some of the materials that we have to try and get our hands on, and we were waiting years for just this simple little thing that basically screwed up production.
So it's really interesting to hear it from your perspective, because obviously there is some frustration out there. When are you going to bring this? So believe you me, it is being worked on. It is not, because it should be.
Are you in a workshop at the end of the day? And at night going, right, let me try this on.
It's as much the paperwork exercise, for the regulatory and what have you. So believe me.
It's a good thing that we have that.
Of course.
they've just put anything in.
Oh,
So like,
I am not knocking it whatsoever. We know it's a process we've got to go through, and it is a process. And at the end of the day, it's driven by customer need, which is a great thing to be driven by.
Yeah.
People want use of the lollipop intraorally. They just want it at a what ostensibly can look bank breaking. A lot of the time it depends on what data we capture as well. So we try and really partner up with the trusts that we're working with to say, if we're able to gather data and we can prove your cost savings, you kind of alluded to it earlier, Joe, if we can prove your cost savings, well actually even at the current price with the sleeve, we can show you still save money. It gets complex when it's downstream savings, because the NHS, God love it, is not very good at saying, well, if we spend from this pot but save here, then it's worth doing. This pot gets really annoyed.
it's also frustrating as like somebody who works at head and neck that it's not actually about the data anymore, it's always about cost savings or emission saving. In the late effect setting, emission saving doesn't really matter. So it's really, really hard then to sit with a commissioner or someone and be like, that's really important that you want that metric. But for me, someone who's 20 years post-treatment, how am I going to prove to you that I've saved an emission by getting a PBM machine? That's helping them open their mouth.
You're right, in the late effects, it's much harder to make that actual raw economic argument.
Also, people don't even know what late effects are.
Well,
a lot of the time, especially because they don't know what radiotherapy is to begin with. Once you tell them that and you say, oh, actually, we do stuff to them 30 years, 20 years later, and you won't even know about it, there's not enough evidence, they say, well, why do I care?
Right, so I know you've had Emma Hallam on here before, so Emma must have spoken
We're
about...
big fans of Emma.
Yeah, so am I. Emma probably has spoken about the PBM and the late effects, and it is the same sort of thing where we're trying to make that cost argument in that space. It's so much more difficult than the on-treat side. I've got to say, on the on-treat side, generally speaking, there's not many business cases we make that don't get accepted, because we are able to make as expensive. Again, it comes back to practicality. We have to work with infection control teams, and we have to be sensible about intraoral usage. It's nobody's fault that Tristel is what's being asked to be used, and therefore it does add a bit of cost. It's something we've got to factor in. But we're all working on it together to try and make it a bit more cost effective. The capital's not expensive. I think that's something we can say.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Rad Chat.
No, thank you. Bye.